Hello everybody. We have a game with the black pieces on a rapid speedrun against Alfonso Soso, rated 1188 as we climb to 1300. We have the black pieces, so against 1e4, we try to get our Pirc Defense. So we attack the pawn and we hope he defends it. A 1200 lead chess is quite low rated, and oftentimes they just don't defend stuff like this for whatever reason, because there's so much going on the chessboard right now. It's just so hard to see that the only thing in the center is hanging. Oh man, I don't know what to say. Why even bother playing chess? It's crazy. Of course, that's easy for me to say from my high horse when these players are just having fun, but how is this fun would be my next question. Anyway, so he develops a bishop, and we play e5. He doesn't stop us. Ah, oh, I forgot I was supposed to do the Pirc setup. Okay, but why? Why in this position? Oops, why do I keep clicking random things? Why in this position would you not play e5 and would you play g6? Well, whatever. I played e5, so we're going to stick with that. He castles. You know what? For you guys, I'll throw in g6 too. That way, no complaints in the comments. You get the best of both worlds. Because in the Pirc, you try to play e5 anyway. They just don't let you. So here, we got it in early. And we still finquero because let's just say we're a fan this speedrun. So he moves his rook over, creates some space. I just want a castle, and we'll call this the starting position for this game. He retreats, and I'm just up a clean pawn in the center. I have my win condition. You may think it's not enough to win, but it is enough to win. First, we throw in the free improving move, which kicks his bishop back to a less aggressive square. Now we can continue developing, and I think we should. Either minor piece makes sense. Let's start with the knight, which we know looks pretty nice here. He develops a knight. Doesn't threaten anything. No real drawbacks. We can develop our bishop. Let's develop it. Control the center as well as both sides of the board. White moves his queen. This threatens our pawn by our king. So we improve our king and protect the pawn at the same time. 2-in-1 move. High value. The more high value moves you can make, the more mathematical advantage you can catch up and slowly push ahead. Okay. He retreats the knight. What does this threaten? Maybe he wants to push f4 is my guess, which looks not like not such a good move, but we'll let him do it. What do we want to do? All of our minor pieces are out. Our rooks are not. We could keep the pawn structure. We could also change the pawn structure. Okay, let's just centralize our rook before we go changing pawn structures. He moves his knight into the center. What does this threaten? Threatens to take the knight, a piece trade, which would bring my queen here. I quite like my queen there, so please do that. How can we encourage it? We can take our space in the center. He goes here, we go here. It's possible. It's not necessary, but it's possible. You could also capture the knight. But if he captures with the pawn, his bishop is suddenly open. So unless I get a specific advantage, I don't want to do that. I could have also played for f5 instead of putting my rook in the center and doing this. I'm just going to improve my knight. I'm just going to make a solid move, nothing crazy. Leave the pawns where they are. If you're not sure if you ever want to change the pawn structure, like, do I want two pawns here? Then suddenly your e5 pawn becomes a target. So you could leave it here and never give him such play. So then you focus on the pieces, right? He made this move, maybe it weakens the d3 square a little bit. So slowly by slowly I can encourage weaknesses on his part, and he kicks my knight, but maybe I can move it to a nice square over to the king side. Who knows? I think it looks quite nice here. Defends the king. It might provoke pawn storm in front of his king, which I would be happy to see. So I like it here. Otherwise, how to dislodge it, I don't know. So now he goes back here, probably trying to dislodge it this way, or put a knight here, one or the other. Drawbacks, nothing too crazy or that matter. Now if we take the pawn, he has to take with the pawn. There's no rook option. Our knight's hit. I don't see a cool move. Let's leave it as is. I like black's position a lot better. His pieces look misplaced and cramped. I really want to just push in the center. So let me look at that. Center, knight to the side, bishop back. I don't see the problem. Let's do it. I like it more with my knight here on f5 than before when I was looking at it with the knight on c6. Why? I probably couldn't tell you exactly why, but I definitely feel a lot better with it here, going down this situation. He retreats the knight and challenges mine, which is just a trade because it's defended. How do I feel about the trade? I think it might be worth ruining his pawn structure because that weakens the e3 square, although it's protected currently. But in an endgame, maybe not so much. Do I want to ruin his pawn structure? I think so. Let's do it. In worst case scenario, it's a neutral effect. Like, it's not an advantage for you, right? But in best case scenario, it's a small structural advantage. So let's throw it in. That nice was knight. That nice, I don't know what I just said, but that knight was nice. However, maybe if we can get some type of structural advantage, we convert it. Okay, now what do we want to do? We have a nice center, good pieces. Activate the queen. Get it in the game. Queen d6 looks fairly active. I was looking at queen d7, sacking the bishop, but I don't think any of that ever worked. You don't have any real attack. So let's just activate it. We can bring the other rook maybe to the central file, maybe even c5 and get a big center going. So he makes pawn moves in front of his king. This weakens the dark squares and threatens to push, I guess. So I need to get my knight out of the way so it doesn't come with tempo. This supports the center, opens my bishop. It looks at the c5 square, looks pretty promising. If he pushes, I blockade. If he pushes again, maybe I shouldn't give him two G pawns because he can just keep battering ram forward. But his king has to get weak if he does that. So if he does go here, I think I might just give up a pawn there. Let him take this, move my bishop, and then say, hey, you can never move past your own pawn. I'm using it as invincible cover. Because if I go here, and he goes g4, and I take, he'd want to take with a piece, and then he could play the h pawn forward. Yeah, so I think I'd sack a pawn there for give him the pawn back that I'm up for ultimate king safety with a much better position. Instead, he improves the knight, going for a different avenue. What does this threaten? Nothing. Not really a drawback, so, you know. But now f5. And now if he pushes past, I can lock it up pretty nicely. And if he takes, I'll take with the bishop, and okay, it would have been nice to have my rook on the f file, but it's also not so bad on the e file. Is he going to play this? No, he jumps his knight to the side, which threatens a peace trade. He's going to put his rook here. There's this. And I'm running out of time. Okay, so let's move our rook back over to the f file. We could take with the pawn, but with 2 minutes on my clock, I mean, how does he stop at 4? Maybe we take with the pawn. Do we take with the pawn? Here, 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 here. That doesn't work. Here, 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 here. I mean, there we can take with the pawn. Bishop to the side. Knight here. Okay, so he kicks the bishop, so none of the above. So let's not waste time, since I have none. We'll just go to our only available square, because I don't see any counterattack moves except these checks, which he can... I don't see the point to the check right now. Keep it in my pocket for a better time. We never have to move these. We're up a pawn. He challenges our rooks. But now when we take, we could just leave it though. Actually, if we go here and he goes here, we go here, he goes here. I don't have to check, but I can take it. I want to push, but this bishop is annoying. I guess push here, bishop takes the pawn, check. Yeah, that's deadly. I'm gonna go for it and hang my h6 pawn on purpose to hunt his king because he made these weaknesses. Okay, he trades rooks first, but now his other rook can't slide over, and the reason I didn't take it is because I didn't want his queen to enter the defense for free. So he goes for the pawn but misses maybe queen infiltration, which maybe it doesn't win something big, but it looks kind of strong, doesn't it? I mean, it looks kind of strong with rook coming in. I could care less about pawns at this stage. And that pawn was just him getting material back, right? So if material's even, he doesn't have the bishop pair because, you know, we have the bishop pair too. So what advantage does he have? And he could have moved his knight back, although rook in is still super deadly. Here, there's a hanging knight, but I think rook in threatens 2 checkmate squares. Rook in, queen over. Okay, let's just take this because it's deadly either way. It's a free knight and a defender of the king. And anytime I hear that noise that my clock is at a minute, I panic. I mean, I'm panicking way before that, but that's like when my brain shuts off and I just want to move. So now we're up a clean piece and rook in here. But of course, we're going to start with the free improving move. Queen takes pawn. King's going to go here. We're going to throw in the free check. That way we're going to lure the king back in the corner. Then we're going to lift the rook up, not threatening the bishops, but threatening checkmate. He has to move his queen over to defend against checkmate, but then we go check on h3. He has to defend with the queen, and then we take the queen with the rook support, and that's checkmate. That was if it was our turn, but he moves the queen as a defender first. We still take this with check, however. And when he goes here, you could take the queen. for simplicity's sake, and then pick up the bishop this way, and resignation follows. Usually. Come on, you know where the button is. You can do it. There's not even an infiltration square on my side of the board. Just hit the button. Just hit the button. I know I have 41 seconds, but it's not going to work, sir. So now he's blocking his own rook for some reason. And the only reason I did this pawn move is just, it's twofold. One, because it was, assuming he put his rook here, I wanted to take away not only my squares, but his side of the board just for fun. And also to give my king like a quick access. Okay, let's throw in a check. I have 28 seconds, so I have to stop fooling around. We take free stuff. We want him to take our pawn so we can bring in another diagonal. He doesn't do it. Okay, I mean, we're up 2 pieces, so we can trade for simplicity. We can take stuff. Give a check. Just to give me time to think. He's going to attack my rook. I'm going to move it again. Who cares? But now I can go here. When he attacks it, I have a bishop check. Okay. Bishop check. I want to trade his rooks because otherwise I'm going to run out of time. How do I get this rook trade? There we go. Click. He's in, he can only move his king back and forth. So you can pre-move this and everything's defended in your position. So there's nothing for him to do. And no stalemates. And since there are no stalemates and I don't have to move my queen, I have too many pieces on the board right now to feel comfortable checking him with my queen right now. White resigned. Okay. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, I was going to get a second queen and then ladder checkmate him because I know I can't mess it up. But like if you're an engine, the fastest thing to do is not get the second queen and checkmate the king with the material you have on the board. But because I have so much material and his king only has 1 legal square, I don't want to get a situation where I stalemate him because I only have 5 seconds. Because when you have 5 seconds, you have to move so fast that you don't have time to check if they're being stalemated as you're doing it. So due to the time situation, you know, that's why I was going for another queen. Whew. The clock. My biggest enemy. I'm going to disregard all those moves at the 1 minute mark because when you analyze your chess, you really want to look for errors in your thinking process and stuff like that. But when you're in time trouble, there is no thinking process. You're just doing, you know, pre-internalized stuff that may or may not be correct given the situation. So, you know, when you have 5 seconds, who cares if you blunder this or that? It's not like it's because you don't know how, you're not good at chess, right? It's because you didn't have time to apply critical thinking. Anyway, we start to get a Pirc, but then he played this weird move which hangs the pawn in the center, and black is minus 0.6, so better. He hits our knight, force move. He develops minus 1.3. You can't just give up pawns at the beginning of the game like that, unless you're playing a gambit that you know. Anyway, e5. If I turn on the engine, I was going to say there's a 0% chance it says g6 is the best move. Now g6 is on the list. Just got kicked off. It was on the top 4 list because it's obviously a playable move. But it just can't be better than e5. Developing the bishop in one move while creating a central pawn presence, preventing your opponents from doing what they want in the center. Huge difference. So we play e5, center, development, best move. He castles, and normally I would just go bishop e7 here because g6 is kind of a waste of time, but it's also a perfectly playable move, and we play it. Okay, development and king safety, minus 1.5, much better for black. King safety and development. And if you look at this structure, you can see that the thing that would connect it is this pawn move to f5. So I think I probably should have played with the f5 pawn advance in mind as opposed to the center, but that's debatable as well. Different options. You know, there's many ways to play chess. So anyway, we throw in the free improving move, we're minus 2. He goes back, and this pawn move makes f5 a little bit less desirable, because if this pawn was back here supporting, everything feels a little safer and more compact. So that's another down vote for a future f5 slight. So we develop and center. Develop and center, right? And I wasn't 100% sure what to do on any of these turns, like what's the exact best move? You know, is it ever d5 because stuff's defended? But we're still making good moves, minus 2.2. They must be the best moves or one of the best. Now force move. And now this is like everything before that happened, I'm confident in. You know, I think we played probably most of the best stuff, or minus 2. But then when I make this rook move, now all of a sudden, I'm unsure. I don't think it was necessary in hindsight. That's why I'm looking at it. But that's my evaluation before I'm looking at what the engine says, right? I come to this point and I remember, in the game, this move felt off. I didn't really like it. I probably should have left it here for f5. So now I'm just checking with the engine. Although it's obviously not going to be a losing mistake or something. I want to see alternatives and different things to think about. Okay, so best move, or one of the best, they're all equal, all 4, is to remove the knight. It has to be with f5. Yeah, that was the plan. You see, I corrected my mistake on my own. I found that f5 should have been the plan. I realized it mid-game. And that's good enough for me. My idea with putting the rook here was, of course, why does the evaluation shoot up like crazy? What? It says it's minus 2. All the best moves are minus 2, meaning black is basically winning. But once I make my move, it was just saying minus 2.5. Now it says minus 2 again. Okay, this thing's just crazy. So my move is about as good as all the others, but it doesn't have the human plan of, oh, move the knight, f5, good to go. Like, that's an easy thing. What I was trying to do, while it doesn't ruin your evaluation, and just so you can understand where my head was at for your games, it was to remove this bishop from this square and to push these pawns in the center. So I was going to get my rooks there. Now that is a way to play, so you can definitely do what I did. But in hindsight, since the rook was already on f8 and my pawn structure's here, I probably would have gone for f5 if I have to do it again. But again, perfectly playable. So now you understand the difference. He jumps his knight to the center. It says black is completely winning at minus 2.5, which is very interesting because We're up one pawn, so we should definitely be better. We have the center, better pieces, so we should be better. But I would say like minus 1.7 would be my guess. So minus 2.5 is quite a lot to me. And you might be wondering where I'm coming up with these numbers that I'm throwing out, but I'm generally very accurate with my evaluations because I analyze my games and I have such a good calibration. Um, so when something's off, it means I'm missing stuff. Okay, so why is this minus 2.5? Is it strictly positional? Again, we're moving the knight because now f5 comes with the tempo. It's so obvious too. What the heck did I play? Yeah, because I was a little unsure of what to do. Knight d5 is the fourth best on the list. You know, still almost minus 2, but it's almost like, yes, I love going knight d4, knight f5 like I did in the game. I think it's really cool. I think my knight's awesome there. I like it a lot. But knight d7 and f5 is so like, but the only thing I don't like about that is that I moved my rook off the f file to e8. Like if my rook was still on the f file, knight d7 f5 is like heaven. But you could still do it because you have enough support anyway. And I did do it later in the game, but I ended up moving my rook back to the f file after realizing I don't want to call it a mistake, but my change in plans. So here I move my knight forward. I even wanted to provoke c3, creating some little bit of weakness, and then go to f5 for free, which he does. And we go to f5, and we're minus 1.7, and that's exactly the evaluation I told you I thought it was, right? I said it should be around minus 1.7, which is around, that's what it is now. The minus 2.5 didn't make so much sense, but I guess down that line of 97 f5, if you go deep enough, it's just even better or something. Okay, so you can see how my internal engine is calibrating correctly, more or less, right? And that's super important because then you know exactly where you stand in the game, you know, more or less, give or take half a pawn, let's say. And that's super useful because it's like if you have the bar with you the entire game, sure, it's not perfect, but the better you get at chess, the more accurate your internal bar is. It's good. Anyway, so he moves his bishop. And here is the only time d5 is the best move. I waited till the perfect time, it seems. Okay, knight d7, you can same thing, but boom, d5. So now is the right time. I'm very happy I chose because I was a little bit unsure when to disturb my pawn structure and if at all I wanted to disturb my pawn structure. And you also have to be comfortable with this line where you hit your bishop and you see how it's best to go bishop c8. A lot of you would be very uncomfortable here, retreating your bishop home, but it's a common maneuver to go bishop home when the knight does this in lots of situations on either side of the board, and then you kick the knight out with a pawn. The knight has to go, and then you put the bishop back where it was. Very common maneuver. So that was my plan, but he went backwards, and this is another point where in the game, with no engine, no nothing, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, do I want to take this knight? It's not entirely obvious. Apparently you do, which I'm happy about. It is the best move, along with knight h4, which is deeper and less obvious. He takes, of course, and we're minus 2. So I mentioned going c5, grabbing the big center, because it looks so obvious. Equally good is queen d6 and rook c8. I chose to develop my queen first. c5 you can do next even. Okay, in hindsight, I can't tell if I like c5 first more. in queen d6. And I don't want to waste time thinking about it because it doesn't matter. At least on stream anyway, or on the video. Okay, then he starts pushing pawns. It got a little weird. I think it's important to move your knight, humanly speaking, because let's say you do the computer a5 and he pushes. What do they even want? You have two moves, hg5 and knight g8. Ah, I didn't even consider knight g8, but yeah, that is an extra defender. Otherwise, you just take and let him in. And how bad is this? This is what I didn't know. Like, why let him do this? So he just took, but it's my turn. And this is kind of slow. Does bishop f5 not walk into this? King g8. a4. Okay, let's go with a4. He takes. Hey, a3. Okay, let's take back like a normal person. How does he continue the attack? I suppose he doesn't. You would need h-file, heavy pieces. Otherwise, there's nothing. That's interesting. I mean, I didn't want to have to even look at any of that. So what did I? So I moved the knight as a, um, and all the knight moves are top moves also, because you don't want it to come with tempo. So I moved the knight, and now this doesn't come with tempo. It gives you various options to see how now the best move is to push past. So that was my idea. Okay, so what did he do? He moves his knight, trying to get it in the game. And here c5 makes a ton of sense, but I think I played f5 or something. Yeah, I did. Okay, from -2 to -1.7, so not the end of the world. They say a5 is absolute best, but it's hard to explain why a5 is better than c5. C5 looks a little more natural, but a5 has the rook behind it, so it makes more sense. If the rook was on the c file, no doubt c5 would be the best move, in my opinion. Anyway, I play f5, even though there's no rook behind it, which I mentioned in the game was unfortunate. Takes, takes. Wait, could you have taken with the pawn? You could have. Bishop is -1.7, pawn is -1.5, so I told you it was playable. I really wanted to, but I didn't have time to figure it out. I took with the bishop. He hits me, and I let him take, developing a piece to the open file. He doesn't take, and all of a sudden he's losing to bishop takes d3. Oh, it has to be something like bishop takes d3, bishop takes d3, e4 hitting the bishop, and then whatever the bishop does, my move, queen g3. Is that correct? Bishop d3, bishop d3, e4, and then let's say he goes bishop wherever. Queen in, knight back. Oh, bishop e5. And mate, forced mate in 15. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, so I didn't do this move, that's for sure. I did the second best move, so instead of -4, it's only -3. Bishop e6. And here, you know, black, I love black's position, he's -3. He contests my rook, although you can definitely take this rook, I didn't want to put his queen here because then it's close to the king. And if I get something like queen g3 and his queen is around his king, it's never really going to create any threats. So I didn't want to bring his queen over. And if he takes, I mean, I'll just take with the rook. So I maintain the tension, which a good human does. And I played the best move, I think. Yeah, e4, opening up this. He takes, force move. He takes a pawn, going pawn hunting and blundering my idea. Um, Forced mate in 3 or forced mate in 13. Either ways, he went for the forced mate in 3. And I said you can just bring the rook in, but I took the knight because of queen over. Oh yeah, but that's checkmate again. Yeah, I calculated the same thing later. And yeah, it's checkmate in 3. Rook up, queen over, queen takes, queen here. Um, Queen takes queen, checkmate. But we went for the mate in 13 option. Blunder. We take the pawn, we take the queen, we take the material, and it's not mate in 3, but it's clearly just game over. So even with our blunder, we have 96% accuracy, a perfect graph, and a great game. I really enjoyed that. This video took so long. Sorry, but I hope you learned a lot, and you can see how I think in my games. Good luck in your chess. Goodbye.